How many of you know of a special day that's coming up soon? It's at the end of this week. It's kind of like, do you remember this holiday when we talked about baby Jesus being born? So the holiday that we're going to celebrate at the end of this week is called Easter. So at Christmas, we celebrate when Jesus was born, and at Easter, we celebrate that he was resurrected. But in order to be resurrected, he had to die, and that's kind of the sad part of the story. So, but it's the same Jesus. So this little baby Jesus grew up and became a man, just like boy babies do. Girl babies grow up and become women. Boy babies grow up and become men. And as a man, he did many, many things that were so good. He taught the people to love one another. We did that song, right? He taught the people how they should act and treat each other. And one thing about Jesus when he was a man is he really loved the little children. And this is a story that he had been out all day, and some mothers wanted to bring their children to him, and some of his helpers said, "Oh, he's too tired. Don't bother him right now." And he heard them, and he said, "Let the little children come." So even when he was really tired, he wanted the children to come. He loved little children. And that is the one thing that I want you to remember about Jesus, is that he loved little children, and he still loves you. So here is the next picture in our little story. And then, as you know, things got kind of out of hand a little bit. And there was some men that really were jealous because Jesus was very popular and he was healing the sick and doing all these things, and they were afraid they were going to lose their power. So they started plotting against Jesus, and they said, "We are going to figure out a way to get rid of this man before we lose all our power." So the night before, since Jesus knew these things, the night before he had a supper with his apostles, his very special friends. And it was a supper that they did every year. It was called the Passover. And they remembered when the children of Israel lived in Egypt and a plague came. And because the children of Israel listened to God, then he protected them from the plague that passed over them. And so every year they had a dinner to think about that, kind of like we have Easter to think about when Jesus was resurrected. So he had that meal, and afterwards he washed their feet, and that's when he taught them to love one another. All right, so after that came a really hard part for Jesus. He went to a garden called Gethsemane. And there he felt all the bad things that ever happened in the world. All the wrong things that people do, all the bad feelings that people feel, all of the things that are bad in the whole world, he felt them. And it was so hard for him that blood came out of every pore, just like sweat does come out of your body. And you know a song about that, a lot of you, because this garden was called Gethsemane. And a lot of you have a song you really like about that. So that was what happened next. After the supper, he went to pray in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he felt all of those bad things. It was terrible, terrible pain. After that, the men came to arrest him. And they took him and they hanged him on the cross. That's the other really sad part of the story. Now, because Jesus' Father was Heavenly Father, who is God, he didn't have to let him kill him. He didn't have to. But he chose to die so that we could go and live with Heavenly Father again. That was the final thing he had to do to finish paying for all the wrong things in the world. So after he died, His friends and his relatives took his body and they laid it in a tomb. And back then they didn't bury him in the ground, they put him in a big cave. And they rolled a great big rock in front of the cave. So in this picture it shows that. So here is the door to the cave, and see this big rock right there? They rolled that in front of the door. But what do you notice in this picture? Is Jesus laying in the cave dead? He's not. Because after 3 days, he was resurrected. He was able to resurrect. He was able to bring himself back to life. We don't know how he did it, but he did, and now he's alive again. And right after he was able to bring himself back to life or be resurrected, he met one of his friends named Mary in the garden of where the tomb was. And she was so happy to see him alive. She ran and told everybody the good news that Jesus Christ was resurrected. And that is what we celebrated Easter, is that he was resurrected. So what you have in your packets is your own story of Easter. So you need to find this. It says my Easter story. And this says name. And you write your name right there. So as you go through the book, it's just some pictures about the story we just talked about how Jesus loved little children when he was on the earth, about how he had that special supper with his disciples called the Passover, about how he went to Gethsemane and felt all the wrong and bad things in the world, about how the wicked people took him and hung him on the cross until he died, and then finally how the stone was, this is the stone, it was rolled away from the cave, and he came out and he was able to be resurrected. And because he did that, then when we die, we will be resurrected too. And one other thing, this is the last page. He is still alive today, and one day he's going to come back to the earth. Maybe one day soon, we don't know. So this is a picture of what he's going to look like. We don't really know what he's going to look like, but this is a picture of what he might look like as he's coming the second time. So I hope you will do your very best coloring. That's what we're doing for our art today, is coloring in this little coloring book about Easter.